down on the ground. The voice came sharp, fast, final. The boy didn't move. He stood in the middle of the empty parking lot. Black hoodie, black jeans, gray sneakers. His hands were open. His eyes confused. Now, hands where I can see them. Still no movement. One officer grabbed his radio. Non-compliant subject, moving in. The other drew his baton. They advanced. The boy tried to speak, but the sound came broken, throaty, unclear. Then he raised his hands, not into the air, but in front of his chest, fingers moving in fast, sharp motions. His mouth opened again. A noise, a breath, then silence. He's resisting. The baton came down. His body hit the asphalt. Arms pulled, knees on his back. Screams no his. Theirs, someone else's. A phone recording. Then a woman's voice. "Wait, Steph, he's deaf." The camera caught it all. The boy's hands trembling. A hearing aid lying 5 feet away in a puddle of oil. And a world that mistook silence for defiance. His name was Leo, 16 years old. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He just didn't hear them. And in a city built on noise, sometimes silence is all it takes to be seen as the enemy. Leo Kim didn't talk much, but that didn't mean he had nothing to say. He communicated through motion, through drawings, through code, through hands that moved with meaning, not noise. He was adopted from Seoul at age 4. Lost most of his hearing after a prolonged fever. By 6, he was fluent in ASL. By 7, he was teaching his parents. His mom, Angela, kept flashcards in her purse. His dad, Michael, installed light-based alert systems around the house. They didn't call him disabled. They called him built different. At school, Leo wore a small hearing aid clipped to his left ear. He read lips, followed rhythm by watching shadows, could spot sarcasm without hearing tone. He had one best friend, Jules, who didn't speak much either. Their friendship wasn't loud. It was fluent. Together, they started a TikTok page, at Signs of Life, where Leo would sign everyday phrases. "How was your day?" "I'm proud of you." "Silence doesn't mean I'm not listening." The videos weren't viral, but they were real. And slowly, a small community built around them, kids who signed, kids who stuttered, kids who felt unseen. Leo didn't want fame. He wanted fluency. Not just in language, but in understanding. He was the kind of kid who picked up trash that wasn't his, who fixed broken lockers with duct tape, who memorized the emergency escape route, just in case someone needed help. He wasn't a fighter. He was a focuser. So when the officers yelled, and he didn't respond, it wasn't disobedience. It was exactly who he had always been. A kid who paused, looked, calculated, and when the world demanded sound, he gave them clarity. In hands. That day, the camera saw everything. But more importantly, it finally made others see him. The walk from school to the bus stop was 10 minutes. Leo made it in 12. He always paused to help someone. That day, it was an old man who dropped a bag of oranges. Leo bent to pick them up. A stranger bumped into him as he stood. His hearing aid fell, landed on the pavement. He didn't notice. He turned the corner into the plaza. Just as 2 squad cars screeched in, there had been a shoplifting call. Black hoodie, black jeans, male. Leo matched it. The officers didn't ask. They shouted, "Stop right there." Leo flinched. Not from fear. From vibration. He turned, saw 2 men running at him, weapons out. His hands rose automatically. Not high. Just forward. He signed, I don't understand. Get on the ground. Leo froze. His eyes darted. Mouth open, trying to read lips. The words moved too fast. He stepped back. They charged. One grabbed his arm. The other pushed his shoulder. He fell. Someone across the street shouted, Wait, what are you doing? No answer. Leo thrashed. Not to resist, but to show his hands. He's fighting, one officer yelled. But if they'd known ASL, they would have seen. Please, stop, I can't hear. A woman stepped closer with her phone. Stop, he's deaf. I know him, he goes to Lincoln High. The officers didn't pause. Leo was pinned. Arms pulled. Blood from his lip where his face met the pavement. A second phone started recording. He's not resisting, someone said. He's confused. But confusion looks like defiance. When you don't understand the language, and silence looks like threat. When you're trained to fear stillness. That's how Leo, a kid who ran no red light, stole no goods, threatened no soul, ended up in handcuffs, with bruises on his wrist, and a hearing aid still lying in the oil-stained shadow of a curb no one looked at. Leo sat on the curb, arms zip-tied behind him. One officer stood watch. The other made the call. Suspect detained. Possible match. Non-compliant. Minor injury. Standing by for identification. Leo rocked slightly. Not out of defiance. Out of pain. His lip stung. His ear was buzzing phantom sound, not signal. The hearing aid was gone. You gonna talk now? The officer asked. Leo looked up, slowly raised his hand still bound, and began to sign. I can't hear. More games? A woman's voice cut in sharp, firm. That's American Sign Language. He's deaf. The officer turned. A woman in scrubs, badge clipped to her pocket. Name, Camila Ortega. I teach part-time at the community center, she said. He's not resisting. He just doesn't know what you're saying. The officers hesitated. He matched the description. He matched a hoodie, Camila snapped. She knelt beside Leo. Signed slowly. Are you hurt? Leo nodded. She turned back. He signed, Please stop, I don't hear. You mistook self-protection for aggression. One officer stiffened. We didn't know. You didn't ask. Phones were still recording. A man across the lot uploaded the clip with one sentence. He didn't fight back. He tried to say, I'm deaf. It hit 100,000 views before sundown. At the station, Leo was processed as a confused juvenile. No charges. But no apology. His parents arrived. Angela ran to him, eyes wide, holding his hearing aid. It was cracked. I'm fine, he signed. Then he paused. But I need them to listen next time. Michael asked, Do you want to file a complaint? Leo nodded once. Then shook his head. Not yet. Why? Leo looked down. Because they still think I was the problem. He pointed to the phones. Let them watch. Then they'll hear me. The video passed 1 million views by morning. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was clear. A boy, standing still, signing for help, and getting tackled anyway. A disability rights lawyer named Taryn Cho reposted the clip. She added subtitles. Asterisk he signed. Please, I can't hear. Stop. This is not resistance. This is a cry in a language you refuse to learn. Asterisk. It sparked outrage. But not just from activists. From parents. From teachers. From officers who recognized, maybe for the first time, how terrifying a command can be when you never heard it. The American Deaf Association issued a formal statement. Asterisk. This is not an isolated incident. This is what happens when accessibility is treated as optional training. Asterisk. News outlets followed. Teen with hearing loss, assaulted by police during misunderstanding. Camera shows officers ignored signs literally. A city councilman reposted Leo's TikTok channel. At Signs of Life, gained 200,000 followers in 2 days. People weren't just watching. They were learning. Meanwhile, Leo said nothing to the press. He didn't want to be a symbol. He wanted to be a student. But when the school asked him to speak at assembly, he agreed. On stage, he didn't take a mic. He didn't need one. He signed. Slowly. Clearly. The interpreter stood beside him. I was taught that silence means respect. That pausing before you act is good. But that day, silence almost cost me my body. He paused. This isn't about blame. It's about translation. And the cost of assuming everyone speaks the way you do. The room was silent this time by choice. Afterward, Jules hugged him. You said everything, without raising your voice once. That night, the city's police training board voted unanimously to require basic ASL awareness in all new recruit courses. The officer who tackled Leo was placed on administrative leave. But Leo didn't want charges. He asked to meet him. Why? His mom asked. Because maybe, Leo signed, he never got the chance to learn how to listen without sound. Officer Garrett was 38. 12 years on the force. Married. 1 daughter. He thought he'd seen enough. Until he saw himself. In 480p. Arms on a child's back. Face tight with urgency that now looked like fear. Not of the boy. Of what he didn't understand. After the incident, Garrett didn't speak to press. He didn't fight the leave. But he did something unexpected. He signed up for a training, run by the local Deaf Resource Center, taught by volunteers, including Leo's ASL teacher. On the first day, they handed Garrett a headset. Noise canceling, they said. Put it on. We'll talk. You follow instructions. He put them on. The room went silent. The instructor stood 5 feet away and began to speak. Garrett couldn't hear. Couldn't lip read from that distance. Couldn't guess tone. He just stood there. Someone behind him shouted he didn't move. A hand tapped his shoulder. You froze, they said. Garrett nodded. I didn't know what was being asked. Exactly, the teacher replied. He took off the headset. The silence lingered. Not in his ears. In his gut. After class, he sat outside. The instructor joined him. You didn't mean to hurt him, she said. But intention doesn't erase impact. Garrett looked down. I kept shouting, thinking louder was safer. Sometimes silence is safety, she said. He paused. Can you teach me how to sign that? She showed him. Hands slow. 1 motion. Then another. Garrett practiced. Fumbled. Tried again. That night, he wrote a letter. To Leo, it didn't say, I'm sorry, in bold. It said, you made me hear what I never knew I was missing. Thank you for not shouting. You gave me something louder than a command. You gave me pause. Leo never said, you owe me. He never asked for money. Never sued. He just kept posting. At Signs of Life became more than a page. It became a space where silence was allowed and where language had more than one voice. He started a mini-series, Words You Should Know in Emergencies. Help. I'm deaf. I need a lawyer. Please slow down. Thousands watched. Some commented, I'm hearing, but I never felt heard until this. When he was invited to speak at the state's annual Justice and Access Forum, Leo didn't walk up to the podium. He stood next to it. Interpreter, by his side. He signed, I don't need to be fixed. I just need to be understood. I wasn't silent that day. I was loud. In the only language I had. He paused. Looked across the room. Stop assuming noise means compliance. And that quiet means guilt. The room stood when he finished. Not with cheers, with stillness. Because that's what Leo had taught them, that silence can say everything. His quote made its way onto a poster used in 3 police academies. Asterisk, don't yell louder. Learn another way to listen. Asterisk. At school, he didn't become popular. He didn't want to. But teachers started learning fingerspelling. And the front office put up a sign. We understand ASL. Please sign if needed. Leo never demanded any of it. He simply reminded them, with hands, not words, what decency looks like. When someone is still trying to be heard. Leo didn't raise his voice. He raised awareness. He didn't win in court. He won in classrooms, in training halls, in the way people started to pause before they shouted. He didn't break anything. He repaired what silence had worn thin. Trust, attention, understanding. This isn't a story about injustice corrected. It's about communication learned, one hand at a time. If this story made you pause, even briefly, then share it. Share it for the students who need extra time to speak, for the kids whose silence isn't disobedience, for the officers who are still learning that listening doesn't always start with ears. At Hidden Justice, we don't amplify noise. We elevate the voices that have been signing for help long before anyone was watching. If you believe those voices matter, subscribe, not for stories, but for the lessons that don't require sound, only attention. So if you're still here, maybe you've already heard what Leo's been saying this whole time. On a quiet Tuesday morning in suburban Atlanta, a man in a faded brown delivery uniform stepped out of his van, package in hand, route half finished. He'd made this drop 100 times before, but this time, someone was watching. Within minutes, a patrol car pulled up. No sirens, no reason. Just suspicion. "Put the box down," the officer shouted, hand on his holster. The man raised his hand slowly. "I'm just doing my job, sir." But the officer didn't care. "ID. Now." The man nodded, calm, reached into his side pouch, and pulled out a black leather case. He opened it without a word. The officer stared, then blinked. "Federal Investigator, Office of the Inspector General." And just like that, the power dynamic shifted. The sun was already climbing by 8 a.m., coating the Georgia sidewalks in gold. Darnell Briggs adjusted his cap, slid on his sunglasses, and climbed into his delivery van. The air conditioning wheezed, barely keeping up. He didn't mind. The day was short, and he planned to be home by 3. His daughter's birthday was tonight. 11 years old, double digits already behind her. In the passenger seat sat a small pink gift bag, tissue paper crinkled, a glittery card tucked inside. "One more stop," he whispered to himself, tapping the dashboard with his knuckle. "Then cake and candles." His GPS blinked. North Fairgrove Estates. Gated access. He'd been there before. Quiet streets, trimmed hedges, driveways wide enough for 3 cars. Not a place where delivery men lingered. Not a place where black men went unnoticed. Darnell knew that. Still, he stayed focused. He hummed along to a Luther Vandross song playing through his earbuds, steering one-handed as the van rolled through the polished entrance. At house 227, he slowed, checking the label. Package for Gerald Whitmore. He stepped out, scanned the box, and walked calmly up the stone path. But halfway up the steps, he noticed curtains shifting on the second floor. A figure behind glass, watching. He had just placed the box at the doorstep when the voice cracked behind him. "Don't move." Darnell turned slowly. A patrol car had pulled in silently. No sirens, just authority. The officer stepped out, hand already resting near his holster. "What are you doing here?" Darnell pointed to the package, still in plain view. "I'm delivering." "You got ID?" "Yes, sir," Darnell replied, voice level. "My work badge is..." Don't reach, the officer snapped. A neighbor had called it in. Suspicious male. Hoodie. Backpack. Lurking near a house that didn't belong to him. Darnell wasn't wearing a hoodie. He had a logo-branded shirt, khaki pants, and steel-toed boots. But none of that mattered. Do you live here? No. I'm a delivery agent. Step back from the house. Sir, Now. Darnell stepped back, hands visible, posture controlled. His heart thudded once then steadied. He'd trained for situations like this. But training didn't prepare you for the way people looked at you when they already made up their mind. The officer walked toward him, scanning his chest like he was searching for cracks in a disguise. What's in the bag? Just my work gear, Darnell said. Open it. Do you have probable cause, officer? That question landed differently. A flicker of something crossed the officer's face. Confusion, suspicion. We got a report. You match the description. What description is that? No answer. Just silence and a hand inching closer to his weapon. Darnell kept his hands visible. I'm asking for your badge number, he said calmly. The officer's eyes narrowed. You don't get to ask questions. But I do, Darnell replied. As a citizen. The air between them tightened. Turn around, hands on the van. On what grounds? You're obstructing. You're resisting. I'm complying, Darnell said. Just not surrendering my rights. The officer stepped closer, chest out, trying to intimidate. You think you're smarter than me? Darnell didn't answer. He didn't flinch. Instead, he said one thing. You're escalating something that never needed to start. The officer shoved him gently toward the van. This doesn't have to get ugly. Darnell's voice stayed even. Then don't make it ugly. A second patrol car pulled up in the distance. Back up. A man with a badge had just called for reinforcements to handle a delivery worker who never raised his voice. Darnell exhaled. Not out of fear, out of calculation. The moment was close. He could feel it coming. And when it did, he wanted it to land like a gavel. Darnell looked straight ahead. 2 officers now, one on each side. His bag still rested by the van's tire. I'd like to show you my identification, he said again. You were told not to move, one officer barked. Then reach into the bag yourself, Darnell said, eyes unblinking. Front pocket, leather case. One of them hesitated, then approached. He unzipped the bag, fingers slow, uncertain. Pulled out a black, sealed badge wallet. Flipped it open. Then stopped. Captain? The officer mumbled, holding it up. The other officer took the case. Read it, blinked, read it again. His posture changed like a thread had snapped inside him. Office of the Inspector General, Federal Investigations Unit. Darnell turned slowly. I'm not just a delivery man, he said. I'm part of a federal task force assigned to investigate misuse of authority in police stops across the southeastern states. The silence didn't just hang it, cracked something open. It was collapse. The officer who had shouted at him stepped back, lips parted, struggling for words. We didn't know. Darnell nodded. You weren't supposed to. This was part of your investigation? No, Darnell replied. This was my daughter's birthday route. I was supposed to be off duty. He picked up the pink gift bag from the passenger seat. But I guess work finds us anyway. Officer Miller stepped back as if the badge had burned his fingers. You should have said something, he stammered. Darnell tilted his head. Would it have changed how you spoke to me? The officer didn't answer. Would it have stopped you from grabbing your gun? From calling backup for an unarmed man with a cardboard box? Miller looked away. The younger officer behind him shifted uncomfortably, pretending to check his radio. Darnell continued, calm and unwavering. You thought you saw a threat, but what you saw was your own fear projected onto a uniform you didn't recognize. The wind rustled the trees overhead. No cars passed. No one spoke. You want to de-escalate now? Darnell asked quietly. Or do you want to keep going? Miller's voice dropped. I didn't mean any harm. Darnell turned toward him fully. That's the most dangerous sentence in law enforcement. Because you didn't mean it, but it still happened. Miller's shoulders sagged. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time since the stop began, he looked small. Darnell didn't file a complaint. He didn't demand a public apology. He just finished his delivery, dropped off the final package, and went home. That night, he lit candles on a strawberry cake and watched his daughter smile. But the silence of that afternoon lingered. Not because it hurt him, but because it could have hurt someone else. Someone younger. Someone more afraid. Someone who didn't carry a badge. What happens when the only thing that protects you is who you are after they've already made up their minds? And what if you're just a regular man? No title, no hidden ID, no shield behind the silence. Would the ending still be quiet? Would you even get to tell the story? This wasn't a story about revenge, or power, or even justice. It was about memory. About what happens when someone chooses not to yell, but to hold up a mirror. And what happens when someone finally looks into it. If this story stayed with you, share it. Not for clicks, not for views, but because the next person who stopped for matching a description might not carry a badge. They might carry fear instead. So if you're still listening, maybe you're already part of the change.